Hello, friends. I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. Welcome to the video version of our Breathe for Life gratitude workshop. So, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the genesis of this workshop. So, as of this recording, right now it's November 22nd, 2021. Um, I've been doing a lot of work as of late related to breath work in lots of different ways, and a lot of work related to the nervous system as well. And although breath work is related to the nervous system, of course, uh, a lot of the work that I've been doing it in sort of separate pieces, and I've been thinking about tying this all together and putting it into a really holistic breath work workshop. And I had an opportunity to use a training facility the day after Thanksgiving this week, that morning. A lot of people are off that day. So I thought, what a great opportunity for me to do this as a gratitude event for all the support that I've gotten, both in the Transformation Nation and Next Level Human community, Richmond Training Center community, but also the community where I live here in Fort Bend County, Texas. But I also have lots of friends and supporters who either won't be able to make it at that time or they don't live close enough. Like that Richmond Training Center, Houston, Texas is not convenient for them. So I wanted to do a video version, but I also wanted to have it be efficient and I wanted to have it up and available at the same time. So the way that I'm going to approach this, friends, full transparency, is I'm going to be pulling clips from lots of other work that I did. So you'll see me in almost every clip in different clothes. Often the setting is quite different, but all the pieces tie together to pull into this. So one of the ideas that I would like you to leave this workshop with is the breath work. It's a powerful tool. It's one of our birthrights as humans, and we're given precious little training on how to use it well. I would argue that the breath is probably the quickest access point into the nervous system that we have available. There are some things, intravenous drugs, anesthesia, things like that are faster, but we can upregulate our autonomic nervous system faster with the breath work than we can with a cup of coffee. We can downregulate the autonomic nervous system much faster with breath work than we can, say, an over-the-counter sleeping pill, right? So it's a powerful, powerful tool. So the first part of the workshop is going to be an excerpt from a talk that I gave recently about how to befriend and manage your nervous system. What I'd like you to focus on there is the discussion on the vagus nerve, and particularly the aspect related to deep breathing. And that's what I'd like you to think about for this practice up ahead. And then we're going to have three separate breath practices. Based on my training, I'm a certified breath coach through Yoga Body. I'm also a John Paul Creamy certified breathwork facilitator. We'll be doing coffee, water, and whiskey category breaths. So coffee category breaths, you would use them in a similar circumstance when people might ordinarily reach for a cup of coffee, right? So first thing in the morning, maybe the energy level is low, nervous system is low, and you need to elevate things, or in the middle of the day, if you're starting to drag a little bit. Water category breaths, just as you could drink a cup of water first thing in the morning, it would be appropriate. It's appropriate in the middle of the day. It's appropriate right before bed. A water category breath is a balancing breath, so it'll bring your nervous system up if it's low. It'll help bring your nervous system down if it's high. And then the last category will be a whiskey category breath. The whiskey category breath, you would use it in a circumstance similar to when it might be appropriate for some people to drink whiskey. I don't drink alcohol at all, as many of you know. But for people that do drink, so that's not going to be in the morning, right? It's not going to be midday. It's probably going to be in the evening. This is going to be something that down regulates the autonomic nervous system. So be those three breath practices. And then I'll follow that up with a breath practice that I call igniting breath work. This is modified based on John Paul Creamy's work. He's the trainer who taught me to become a breathwork facilitator in this discipline. So I'm not going to tell you much about that right now, except that there will be like a pretty exhaustive level of instructions. It's a strange breathwork practice. in many respects, and it's really, really powerful. So it's really important to me that folks that are going to do this breath practice go into it with their eyes open. So one thing that I want to tell you before I put in the talk on the nervous system, as a general rule of thumb, like 99% of the time, the nose is for breathing, the mouth is for eating, right? So we can exhale through our mouths with no ill effect. Inhaling through our mouths long term is super unhealthy for lots of different reasons. If I had a breathwork practitioner come to me for coaching and they were a mouth breather, I would be working with them to try to correct that. And the igniting breathwork practice is that 1% of the time where I cue people intentionally to breathe through the mouth. So this is short term. I don't recommend this. In fact, I recommend against it on a regular basis. But during the breathwork practice, if you do the breathing through the mouth as in the instructions that I'll give you during that practice, you will find a much more profound experience. Thank you, friends, for all the support that you've given me, that you've given to Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. I hope this video workshop is of value to you, and feel free to give me feedback. So you can reach me through email. It's Chris at transformationnationyogaandwellness.com. You can call, or I'm an introvert, better yet, text US number 281-728-3896, or you can find me on social media, both Instagram and Facebook at Transformation Nation Yoga. Enjoy your practice, friends. All right, so before I start, if you would, write in the chat box, what are your assumptions about the role of stress in your life? Like when somebody says stress to you, what do you think about? And I don't have any expectations here, friends. There's no right answers, as they say. Unhealthy, for sure it can be, Sonia. Yeah, work related, Casey, and unavoidable. Yeah, like life is going to put us in circumstances that stress us, and it can stress us in ways that are productive and useful for us, or in ways that really are not what we needed in that situation. So to that end, I wanted to talk just for a minute about the difference between stress, eustress, and distress. So stress is really intended. We don't use it as neutral in terms of value. Usually, we mean when we say stress, we mean distress. But stress is intended as a pretty neutral term. It's a specific response of the body to a stimulus that affects the state of the nervous system homeostasis or balance. So this is something that comes up in our lives that affects the balance of the nervous system. Can you think of a circumstance where you've had stress come up in your life that was useful, that helped you in a way, that was productive? And if so, can you put an example in the chat box? And if not, no pressure, friends. I literally volunteered to share with you. You didn't volunteer to share with me. Yes, fleeing actual danger, right? We're going to talk about sympathetic nervous system response, the distress that creates. We have that from an evolutionary standpoint. We have that for a reason. And although the way it manifests for most of us now is very different than it did for our ancient ancestors, we still have circumstances come up where we are physically in danger. And yeah, that's exactly right. What's another example of stress that came up that was helpful? I will tell you, for me, it's deadlines, right? There are lots of times where I have something that I really want to do, especially service oriented, to produce something that I know is going to help someone. But there are I have lots of excuses and lots of reasons why doing it right now isn't going to be like, I don't need to do this right now because I've got other things to do. By the way, there's this new Marvel series that's on Disney Plus, right? That seems pretty important right now. Having a timeline, knowing that there's a date and a deadline, puts a degree of stress on me that's really productive. I do really good work when I have a deadline and I know that something's due for me. So this would be called eustress. So this is a moderate or a normal physiological, psychological stress that we would interpret as being beneficial to us. Contrast that with distress, and that's a high psychological stress that we would interpret as being negative or harmful to the recipient, in this case, us. So let's look at an overview of the nervous system. Right, so I want to give you just a broad overview first, and we're really going to focus in on the kind of the center and the right where it says autonomic neurons. The central nervous system, this is the communication system. This is the electrical communication system in the body, the nervous system. And the central nervous system is the processor. It's the central processing unit. So it's our brain and it's our spinal cord. So here, this particular diagram has the job of the neutrons, these electrical impulses that are going back and forth. Afferent, what that means on the left-hand side between central nervous system and the sensory input, this is when we experience something in our sense organs. The afferent neurons take that, communicate that back to the central nervous system. And on the other side, the efferent neurons are when something's being communicated from the central nervous system out to the peripheral nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system can be broken down into two divisions. One is sensory, which I mentioned. So for the example, we feel something crawling on us and we look down and there's a spider, right? So we've got the sensory input of the feeling of the crawling, but also of seeing that. So the efferent neurons go to the central nervous system and say, "There's, we got a spider on us right now," and then the central nervous system communicates that. So the motor division is the other division of the peripheral nervous system, and this too we can break down into two divisions. One is somatic motor neurons, the somatic motor division. This is like our conscious decision to move muscles. This is when we're moving muscles. And then the autonomic nervous system, which is more or less subconscious. It responds less to conscious thoughts. So it's within this, the two divisions of the autonomic nervous system that really affect what I want to talk about today, the stress. Enteric nervous system is on this diagram, very interesting, but beyond the scope of this talk. This is our gut. Like if somebody says, what does your gut tell you about this when you're trying to make a decision? We're making a reference to the enteric nervous system, but that's a topic for another talk. So for now, what I'd like to talk about is the autonomic nervous system. So a really nerdy way for me to kind of convey this is if you look, like a lot of good stories have two characters. They really complement each other well, and they have really different traits and qualities. And the story would be incomplete without them. So they don't exactly cancel each other out. In literature, characters like this in a story, they're known as foils. So in Star Trek, a great example of foils are Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. So Captain Kirk is the captain of the Starship Enterprise, and he's always looking for a fight. He's always seeing these things coming up, and he sees everything as a threat, and he overreacts. But he's our sympathetic nervous system, but it's the calm Vulcan logic of Mr. Spock slowing things down and saying, "Well, let's look at what we actually have going on here, and let's talk about that." Jim, what you're talking about isn't logical. So in this metaphor, Mr. Spock would be our parasympathetic nervous system. So within the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system's job is to respond to stress or threat. Its primary role is reacting, responding to what's happening right here, right now. And the parasympathetic nervous system's job is to respond to everything else. So if we look at the sympathetic nervous system response, what are your body's response to stress? And it could be stress in general, but I'm most interested in the distress, what could have a negative, you would perceive this kind of stress as negative. How does your body respond to this? And if you could put that in the chat box, like wanting to scream. And it could be more than one thing, friends. It's certainly multiple things in my body. Sweating, yes, for sure. Body temperature increases. Kite jaw, shoulders, elevated heart rate for sure. Yep, you both said elevated heart rate. Um, yeah, that's exactly right. So lots of physical functions in the body that manifest in different ways in our lives. For example, when I'm under a big load of stress, sometimes I don't know it in the moment, and the first real clue that I have is my sleep dries up. When my sleep goes away, that's a pretty good clue for me that things I need to do something to change the equation in my favor. So our Captain Kirk activation, sympathetic nervous system. This is our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. So blood is shunted to the kind of areas that you would think that we would need it to respond to some kind of a threat. It goes to the brain, it goes to the heart, the lungs, the large muscles, the things that we would need to either run away from something or to fight. And it's pulled away from things like our guts. Like we don't need to be digesting in that moment. Pupils dilate, so our vision can get really clear in front of us. Peripheral vision tends to shut down. And the sympathetic nervous system activation is vasoconstricting, so the blood vessels get smaller. So what you guys identified, body temperature increases, we often sweat, pulse rate increases, blood pressure increases, and the adrenals start to release hormones so that we're prepared for whatever this dire threat is that comes up. In a life and death situation, what I think of as what our ancient ancestors, maybe under assault of a saber-toothed tiger, um, this is a really useful tool. The sympathetic nervous system, we needed that to survive. And like you guys said, we still have things that come up in our lives that are clear and present danger and threats to our safety and our well-being in this moment. We need the sympathetic nervous system response. But my question for you, and again, I will ask you to put this in the chat box, how does the sympathetic nervous system distinguish between these clear and present danger threats, like the saber-toothed tiger, I'm under attack by a saber-toothed tiger, or another stress, like I just said something really thoughtless and careless to a friend of mine, and I'm overthinking and worried about what she's thinking about me and if I hurt her feelings. How does the sympathetic nervous system distinguish between those um, two stimuli? What are your thoughts? And you may know this already. I'm kind of setting you up. It's a little bit of a trick question. Casey, that's right. Yeah, environment and context, right? That's our Spock. That's our parasympathetic nervous system response, trying to balance things out, maybe. But most of the time, it doesn't distinguish it well at all. And from the standpoint of our physiology, the sympathetic nervous system response is the same whether it's a saber-toothed tiger. We're driving. We almost had another vehicle hit us. We're under a deadline at work that was not reasonable when it was given to us. We just said something foolish and dismissive to a friend, and we're overthinking and worried about it. Like our body responds to all those things in the same way. So while this kind of sympathetic nervous system activation is really useful when we're under assault by a saber-toothed tiger, on these other times, because these things come up for us often every day, right? And if you think about the high blood pressure, the vasoconstriction, and the sympathetic nervous system response is inherently inflammatory. It causes inflammation in the body. So if you think about it from that standpoint, it would be nice to have some tools to change that when it's not the saber-toothed tiger. Right, and this brings us to Mr. Spock. This is our parasympathetic nervous system activation, and this is our the rest and digest division of our sympathetic nervous system. And a lot of it's really, you might think of these as opposite qualities of what we get with sympathetic nervous system activation and what will we need when we're trying to rest, relax, and digest. So instead of vasoconstricting, we have vasodilation. The blood vessels expand. So we have a decrease in heart rate. We have a decrease in blood pressure. There's an increase in the production and the release of bile. Same thing with saliva. So the things that we would need to rest and to relax. So to that end, one hack that we would need that we have that a lot of people don't necessarily know about. I was like, it wasn't until I started practicing yoga that I first heard about the vagus nerve. But this is a tool that we can use to hack that parasympathetic nervous system response. So if you would in the chat box, if you are very familiar with the vagus nerve, you know basically what it is and basically what it does for us. Type a 0. If you've heard of it, but don't know much about it, type a 1. If this is all ancient Greek to you, never heard of it before, type a 2. And again, friends, there are no right answers. 1. Okay, awesome. So heard of it, not super familiar. 1. Yep, 2 ones. Okay, awesome, guys. So there are 12 cranial nerves, and the vagus nerve is the 10th, and it has a role in regulating all these core functions that affect, like we need them to live, but they also, like we these are really impactful in our health. So things like body temperature, the rate of our heartbeat, and the heart function, decreasing pressure, satiation signals. So once we've eaten something, sending messages to the rest of the body, to the brain that's enough. We've had enough to eat, and now it's time to stop and digest that. Decreasing inflammation. Let me come back to that in a moment. The vagus nerve also has a role in mediating stomach acidity, blood sugar, water and sodium balance, and a lot of fluid productions like saliva, tears, and bile. So given what the parasympathetic nervous system activation looks like, no surprise that the vagus nerve's role is so impactful. I've been obsessed for the last 4 to 6 months with inflammation, and in particular, chronic systemic inflammation. So anything that decreases inflammation to me is really interesting, and I want to know more about it. Um, my teacher, Kate Stillman, she's my Ayurveda teacher. She's my business coach as well. She says that like if we have too much in the body, we take in too much food, um, we have inflammation. Or if we take in too much through our eyes and our ears, we have too much inflammation. But if we're in sympathetic nervous system activation, if the autonomic nervous system is elevated too much, that's inflammatory in nature too, and that will hurt us. So I would make the argument that most of what I would consider to be the boogeyman illnesses of our time are inflammatory in nature. So if you would, in the chat box, write a couple of examples that come to mind of what something that you think of as either a boogeyman illness of our time or an illness that's really common that's inflammatory in nature. And I've got a list, but I'd like to make this as interactive as we can. Whoops. Heart disease, for sure. Coronary heart disease, yep, is inflammatory in nature. For sure it is. Diabetes, arthritis, both inflammatory in nature. I would add to this list cancer, obesity, um, Alzheimer's disease, autoimmune disorders. They all have the root, like one of the common factors in terms of root causes that all of these have in common is chronic systemic inflammation. How people responded to um, COVID-19. If people got contracted COVID-19, their response, how sick they got or how not sick, the way the symptoms expressed had a lot to do with the level of has a lot to do with the level of chronic systemic inflammation in our bodies. So this is really important. If you look at this diagram, everything yellow is vagus nerve, right? So vagus is Latin for wandering, and it's a huge nerve. It starts at the brain, but goes all the way down into the gut. Right? So if we want to use the vagus nerve as a hack or a shortcut cut into autonomic nervous system management, some of the things that the vagus nerve responds really well to are slow rhythmic breathing. So if you think about that good, that peaceful, calm, euphoric feeling at the end of a good yoga class. Part of what that is, not all of what that is, but part of what that is the vagus nerve's response to the breath. That breath is vagal toning. Vagal toning is just a term. It means the vagus nerve's ability to effectively respond to stimuli in the environment, to not under respond, to not over respond, but to come in right on track. So slow rhythmic breathing is impactful on the vagus nerve. Manual massage is really impactful on the vagus nerve. Also, medical stimuli. There are some devices that are given by physicians where people can either use them on the outside of their body and they'll massage the vagus nerve, but there are also implants that people can get. So I don't actually know anyone that's had this done, but I read about people who have had like really bad clinical depression, and they've tried therapy and they've tried medication, they've tried breathing, they've tried every tool that they knew that they had at their disposal, and nothing seemed to help. And then they got this device implanted in their neck that stimulates the vagus nerve, and they finally feel like themselves again, right? So, pretty amazing response from the vagus nerve. So, one of the things, like, given what we talked about with um, the autonomic nervous system, it would be really easy to look at the sympathetic nervous system as bad and parasympathetic nervous system as good. But just like the Starship Enterprise needed both Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock to be healthy, whole, and complete, like they wouldn't have been able to respond to adversity without Captain Kirk, and they would have overreacted or responded to things that weren't adversity, treated them as threats without Mr. Spock. Um, our our wholeness needs both sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system response in some of the ways that we talked about, but also in some really mundane ways. So if you think about like when we're sleeping, most of the time, hopefully, we're in a parasympathetic nervous system response. To get up in the morning, if we don't have some level of sympathetic nervous system activation, we're probably never going to get out of bed again. So it comes up in our lives all the time. For us to be able to relax and go to sleep, we have to have that autonomic nervous system response. Um, like we're all grown folks, so this is going to be a grown folk comment, but like uh, sexual intercourse, we people have to be relaxed. There has to be a parasympathetic nervous system activation in order for people to feel arousal and have that healthy, whole, complete part of a gratifying part of a human relationship. But orgasm is not possible through just parasympathetic nervous system response. There has to be that sympathetic nervous system element. So this comes up over and over again in our lives. We need both of these, and we need tools to be able to activate all of these. What I'm going to focus on for tools is parasympathetic nervous system. Now, there are tools that we can use to activate the sympathetic nervous system. I can share some of those with you, but it's not the topic of tonight's uh, talk because that's not what's hurting people most of the time. That being said, if you want some breath work to help activate sympathetic nervous system, let's talk afterwards and I'll share some tools with you. If you would type in the chat box, what are common habitual tools that in our society we use to manage the autonomic nervous system, to either activate the sympathetic nervous system or activate the autonomic nervous system? And these are like, this is not, there's no judgment here, friends, because we all do some or all of these. Alcohol, cannabis, for sure. For sure. Yep, that's right. Drugs. Yep. Coffee. I would argue that coffee, sugar, and alcohol are energy drinks. Caffeine, well, let's add caffeine to the list. Caffeine, alcohol, and sugar are all powerful drugs that are legal for most people in our society. And so we use them, right? And like with the cannabis, um, it's not a legal drug right now. Of course, eventually it will be. Why alcohol is legal and cannabis is not makes no sense to me. But I'm like, they didn't ask me. This is just what the law is right now. So part of my point here is I don't think it's wrong for us to have a cup of coffee if we can do it in moderation. We can do it in a controlled way. I don't think it's wrong for us to have a sugary snack if we can do it in moderation and in a controlled way. Same thing with alcohol and cannabis. Like For me, if I drink a beer tonight, I'm going to wake up in a ditch tomorrow, but I know that about myself. So I'm not going to do that, right? I learned that about myself a long time ago. But that's not the case with a lot of people. A lot of people can use those responsibly. But what I would argue is that these tools, when we use them to manage our autonomic nervous system, sometimes we use them in excess, and they do all come with trade-offs and side effects that sometimes are not what we want, are not what we want at all. So I want to share with you some other tools that we can possibly do. All right, friends. Now we're going to start the Breath for Life practices. So this will be the coffee, water, and whiskey category breaths that I mentioned earlier. These are amazing tools that you can use at any time when you need them to regulate and manage your own autonomic nervous system. So enjoy these practices. Right. So for this breath practice, the mechanics of how the breath itself will work. On an inhale, you'll make exhale like a sneezing noise out through the nose, a sharp, piercing exhale through the nose. At the same time, snap your belly button back towards your spine. You might visualize someone had thrown you a football, and you're catching the football in your belly as it approaches your body. And then as you inhale, just relax the belly button. You don't have to push it back out, just let it fall back out. So it's belly button snaps back to spine as a sharp exhale, sneezing sound through the nose, and then just let it relax back out. So we'll do, when we get into the practice in the next video, we're going to do 50 of these, which is pretty beefy. That means you could dial it back, maybe start with 20. 20 might be fine. If after over time your body wants more of this, you could also increase it up to 100. 3 rounds of 100 for someone that's practiced this for a while, I think is 100% reasonable. At the end of one iteration, I'll cue you to exhale out all your breath. And then we're going to do a breath retention. It's called kumbhak. We'll do 2 rounds per breath cycle, one with lungs empty, one with lungs filled. What I'll cue you to do, exhale out all your breath. Then I'll cue you to lift your pelvic floor. So to lift the pelvic floor, draw your belly button in towards your spine, and then lift it up as if you could touch yourself in the sternum, and then lower your chest to your chin to your chest. And we'll do a breath hold here for a timed count. And then I'll cue you to inhale as you lift your chin, relax your pelvic floor, and then at the top, hold the breath, lift the pelvic floor, chin to chest, chest to chin, and hold. And we'll do this for a time sequence. And then I will cue you to exhale as you release the pelvic floor, lift your chin. The first 2 times after I release you from this breath retention, I'll cue you to take a half breath. We'll roll right into the next cycle. After that, when we get to that third round, if you want to continue, you can. But from my perspective, 3 rounds of 50 is more than a good starting point. That's a fairly advanced breath practice. So just for today, for this instructional phase, let's do a single round of 20. So I will snap to keep cadence, exhale each time I snap, or slow it down for your body. All right, so cup your hands on your knees, take in a half breath, and then begin. Sharp exhale through your nose, snap your belly button to your spine. Exhale, exhale, exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale out all your breath. Lift your pelvic floor, hold your breath, chest to chin, chin to chest. And then inhale gently, lift your chin, release your pelvic floor, full lungs, hold the breath, lift your pelvic floor, chin to chest, chest to chin, and hold. And then exhale, as you lift the chin, release your pelvic floor. Right, so this is the instructional phase for Kapalabhati. The next video will do a pretty beefy breath practice. So it'll be 3 rounds of 50 reps of Kapalabhati breath. All right, we'll get started with our alternate nostril level category practice. So I already mentioned about pranayama mudra. The way that this will work, we'll begin on the left nostril. So I'll cue you to exhale out all your breath. I'll cue you to close your right nostril, inhale through your left for a count of 4, and then reach up with a ring finger, pinky finger, both nostrils closed. Release your right nostril. Exhale through your right for a count of 4. Stay right here on the same side. Inhale through the right to count of 4. Then we'll close the right nostril. Both nostrils are closed. Open the left. Exhale for 4. Inhale for 4. Change sides. And we'll go back and forth just like that. If this is a new practice to you, it sounds like there's a lot going on, and there is. But I'll cue you every step of the way. And we're going to do 10 rounds of this. So exhale out all your breath. And then with that pranayama mudra, close off your right nostril. Inhale through the left for 1, 2, 3, 4. Close left, exhale right. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay right here. Inhale right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Close right. Exhale left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay right here. Inhale left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Close left. Exhale right. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay right here. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Close right. Exhale left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Close left. Exhale right. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay here. Inhale right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Close right. Exhale left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Close left. Exhale right. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Close right. Exhale left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Close left. Exhale right. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job, friends. Eyes are closed, body's relaxed, breath is natural. That was an alternate nostril breath, a level category breath. Excellent work, friends. You're doing great. Keep going. All right, friends, let's get started with that 4-8 down regulating breath. So we're going to work through 10 rounds of this. And how the breath will work is I'll cue you to inhale through your nose for a count of 4, and then I'll cue you to exhale through your mouth through a count of 8, making a ha sound. Now that ha sound, it might be out loud just like I did it. It could also be silent, but you know the texture and the feeling of that ha breath. That's what's important to me. So I'll cue for a cleansing breath first, and then we'll roll right into that practice. So for that cleansing breath, draw in a deep, life-affirming inhale. And then exhale, let that all go. And then inhale through your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your mouth. Ha. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale mouth. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Two more. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Eyes are closed, body is relaxed, breath is natural. Great job, friends. That was your lower practice 4-8 relaxation breath. The Breathe for Life practices, I expect, will be your primary tools for managing your nervous system. The last practice that I'm going to leave you with, the igniting breathwork practice, is great for deep emotional release. Or if you've been carrying around something heavy that you need to let go of, I find it to be a really good practice for that. So the Breathe for Life practices, I use some of those practices, both ones covered in this workshop and in others that are not covered on a daily basis. This igniting breath work I do not use on a daily basis, but when I need it, it's a really amazing tool for me. So I hope you enjoy this as well.
Friends, with this igniting breathwork practice, it's a pretty intense experience, and especially for people who've never done a practice like this before. So sometimes what I hear from people is they can feel a lot of anxiety before it begins, or a full range of emotions. There are some fairly predictable things that happen. So I'd like to talk in general about a framework for understanding breathwork. Some intelligent, what to me are intelligent questions to ask when somebody talks about introducing a breath technology that's new to us. I'll talk to you about the specific impacts that you can expect today on your body, your mental state, what can you expect from your mind during this practice, and emotionally, some things that you might be able to expect. And then I'll talk you through the technique, I'll demonstrate the technique, and then I'm gonna start to facilitate the technique. Now, obviously with the recorded version, I can't see you, but I've facilitated this practice with enough people that I have a pretty good understanding of what to expect. Like, I think I know how most people's bodies are gonna flow. The impacts are really variable. They're highly variable, but like there's certain things that seem to be really common for people. So with that, with the breath work, in general, this is like our breath is powerful. The shortest route to access the central nervous system for humans is through the breath. And yet this is never taught to us. And the shortest way for us to impact our immune system is through the central nervous system. So there's a clear link from breath all the way to immune system. Immune system health is a huge issue or concern for people. I'll give you an example. I worked as a state police officer for 9 years. And during that 9-year period, 2 to 3 days a week, I had these really weird shifts, like 3 to midnight, or sometimes even beyond, depending on what was going in the parks where I was patrolling. And I often had administrative responsibilities in the morning, or conference calls, or even things in my personal life that I wanted to make happen for me. So like the way that I coped with that was chemically. I used coffee. So I drank probably sometimes 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day, and still some evenings drinking coffee up until 9 or 10 o'clock at night so that I could stay sharp. And focus during the time that I had responsibility for patrol. As you might expect, I would get home from my shift and it would take me hours to gear down and I would never sleep well. So I went probably really a full 9 years working off of 5 to 6 hours of low quality sleep per night, right? It's completely unsustainable. At the same time, I had a consistent yoga practice for almost this whole time period. And there were breath techniques, breath technologies that my teachers were introducing to me. So one, for example, that's a part of my daily practice is called Kapalabhati, right? It's the same, like if I go overboard drinking coffee, the tinnitus, the ringing in my ear kicks up. After I do 3 rounds of this breath work, tinnitus, right? So this is a nervous system response. For my body, my ears start to ring when my central nervous system is elevated. So all along, I had this breath technique that if someone had told me, this is how you can apply this as a tool to your life to make your life better, I could have done without all of that coffee, right? When I finished my state service, my central nervous system was fried. And it took me really a full year to heal my nervous system. So the reason that I tell you that is, first of all, my teachers all along, I'm sure they knew what the impact of these techniques were that they were introducing. They gave me way too much credit. So ask these questions. So for me, intelligent questions, when somebody introduces a breath technology to us, what are the effects, what are the impacts that I can expect on my central nervous system? Is this going to trigger a sympathetic nervous system response, which will elevate my heart rate, increase my body temperature, and have a wide range of effects like that, similar to what we might do chemically, say with a cup of coffee? Or is this breath technique that we're doing today, will it trigger a parasympathetic nervous system response, which down-regulates the central nervous system, calms the pulse rate, slows the pulse rate, calms the breath, lowers the body temperature back into a more normal rate? A lot of times when we look at a discipline like yoga and we're introducing breath, what people are after is something that downregulates the central nervous system, for the reason that we live such an upregulated, stimulated, busy life. We just need something that's going to bring us back into this balanced range of sattva, so balanced energy. So that's one question that I would always ask. The second question that I would always ask, how can I apply this breath work as a tool to make my life better? And frankly, friends, if it can't make your life better, if it's not a tool that you can use in your life, I would set it aside. We are inundated with all these tools. And on this wellness path that you're on right now, you're going to have tools come to you left and right. And it's really easy because something is fun or it's interesting or novel to throw a tool in the toolbox that you have no real use for, that isn't the best tool for you for that application, right? So like, I can't tell you what to do in your practice. I will tell you, for me, I don't clog my toolbox up with tools that aren't working for me, that aren't leveraging my best needs for what I need to apply it in my life. So the two questions: what's the impact that I can expect in my central nervous system? How do I apply this as a tool to make my life better? So let me answer those first two questions right away with this breath technique. So I branded this breath technology Igniting Breath for my business, but you might also hear similar techniques: conscious connected breathing, circular breathing, or branded names like transformational breath, or God, the name eludes me right now, but there are other really similar technologies out there. This isn't exactly the same, but in terms of the impact on the central nervous system, in the outcome at the end of the practice, I think you'll find it to be really similar. So this is not a sleepy time breath work, right? We can do a breath practice at some point, and I can show you some techniques to down-regulate your central nervous system, to calm things down for you. This one is highly upregulating of the central nervous system. So increased pulse rate, increased body temperature. I wouldn't do it close to bedtime. I wouldn't do it anytime close. I recommend against it, for the reason that I think it will impact your sleep in a way that's not in your favor, right? So, but this is a great practice to do early in the day. That being said, as far as a tool in your toolkit, why to do this is not to wake yourself back up to stimulate the central nervous system so you're alert. Right there, I think there are better breath techniques available. Kapalabhati is one that I mentioned earlier that we could do in a practice sometime. Why to use this one? What I hear from this, I was attracted to breath techniques like this when I read Glennon Doyle's Love Warrior. And she talks about going to a transformational breath practice and having connection with the divine, right? That gets my attention. That's what I want, right? So that being said, that's never been my experience with this breath technique. And my experience with this breath technique has been profound, right? What people frequently report, and some of what I've experienced, feelings of elation, deep, deep emotional release, right? So one of the things that I'll tell you about that, I can't tell you to feel safe. You have to feel that. But if you're in a space where you are feeling safe and you have this deep emotional release, sometimes we tend to push that away, right? And you can do that. That's your choice, friends. This is not hypnotism, right? You'll be able to choose your response. I would encourage you, if you have that deep emotional release come up, to lean into it and let that rip out. Every third time I do this practice, I have what I would consider a category 5 solving event, right? But in a really good way. I leave that feeling cleansed. Usually for me, that happens when I've been really deeply holding on to something that's hurting me. I had 2 breath sessions in a row where I had 2 different clients, practitioners in this breath practice, report to me some level of ancestral healing. One of them told me specifically she had a vision of herself at the end of this practice, sitting with her inner child, her own child, and an ancestor, a grandparent or great grandparent. Deep, deep potential for healing. Right. So those are some of the reasons why you might choose to keep this as a toolkit, a tool in your toolkit. This isn't a practice that I necessarily recommend for you every day. It's just breathing, and it's very, very physically rigorous. So during this rigorous practice, I'm going to be pushing you pretty hard on the technique. That being said, you're in the driver's seat, friends. This is not hypnotism. So if you decide at some point this is not for me, I'm going to tell you what the tricks that the lawyers of the mind are going to play on you during this practice, right? So you can recognize them when they come up and maybe choose to set those aside and push through into the technique, right? But ultimately, you're the decision maker in this process. This is your practice. I'm simply your guide. All right. So what do you expect? John Paul Creamy, my trainer, describes this as a triangle, and on one end we have physical impacts, or physical things to expect, mental things to expect, emotional things to expect, right? So on the physical side, I think what you'll notice first is a sense of tingling, maybe tingling in your face. Sometimes people tell me really specifically the tip of the nose tingles. You'll feel tingling in your outer extremities. So your hands, your arms, your feet, and your legs. Toward the end of the practice, you'll feel a deep sense of full body vibration. So your body won't physically moving, but you'll be feeling the energy pulsing and emanating from your body. To me, it's a really powerful feeling. The technique, like breathing through the mouth, is not healthy. It's not healthy. So long term, we should not be breathing through the mouth. We should be breathing through the nose. For this technique, this is really specific, a mouth breathing technique. So you'll experience dry mouth. Sometimes people, like, if nobody says anything, they wonder at the end of the practice, hey, my mouth got really dry. Is that normal? Yes. It would be less normal if your mouth didn't get dry. So those are some of the physical impacts that you can expect. What can you expect mentally? Mentally, like, the ego gets really challenged in during this practice, right? So the lawyers of the mind will tell you things. They'll play some tricks on you, like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. I don't think this is for me. They also might manifest as yawning or starting to feel tired. You will feel tired. It's a physically rigorous practice, and you can do this. You can do this. The breathing portion where I'm pushing you in the technique today is going to be about 22 to 25 minutes, right? So knowing that your mind is going to do that, why is the mind going to do that? Why is the ego get challenged? There's a phenomenon, it's called hypofrontality. If you think about that shitty voice in your head that tells you things like, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I'm not strong enough, I'm too strong, whatever it is, we're never quite enough, right? That all happens in the prefrontal cortex. And this breath technique pushes our consciousness temporarily down into the brainstem. So that self-critical voice, that gets temporarily shut down. You get a little reprieve. So there are some people, particularly people who don't have a meditation practice, this is the first real reprieve that they've ever experienced from that voice, short of when they're sleeping, right? So that's the ego gets really challenged. So expect those challenges from your mind, right? Know that that's going to happen, and know that if you want to really lean into this technique, it's okay. You can expect those instructions from the lawyers of the mind, and you can choose to ignore them and push through them. So that's physically, mentally, emotionally. You can expect deep emotional release, potentially. Maybe connection with the divine. I don't know. That's not ever been my experience, but if it's yours, I think it's wonderful. I'm going to cue you to set an intention, right? So the intention might be something like, if you're carrying on to something that you've been holding on to for a long time, guilt, shame, or anything else, your intention could be to let those things go, right? Your intention could be, if there's something that you've been longing to carry with you, maybe choose to find something to bring that in. Maybe that's compassion for yourself, right? Maybe it's something else. What I would say about the intention, when I tell you that people have reported experiencing ancestral healing, when they've reported experiencing connection with the divine, feelings of deep elation, when I cue you to set your intention, think big, friends. Think big. Ask for what you want, right? And you may not get that. Like each person that like some people I've facilitated in the same breath practice 5 or 6 times, their experience is different every time. And yours today could be crickets. That's okay. I doubt it. If you do the technique, I think you'll get a good effect. But it could be crickets, right? That's okay. But it's better. What is it they say? It's better to shoot for the stars and hit the moon than shoot for the moon and hit a mud puddle. So think big, ask for what you really want, shoot for the stars. So that's the what breath work in general, the 2 intelligent questions to ask, what you can expect physically, mentally, and emotionally. Now, let me tell you about the technique. So this is an open mouth technique. The mouth will be open. It's a 2-part inhale through the mouth, 80% in the belly, 20% in the chest, and then a short, relaxed exhale out of the mouth. Just let it fall out. So the way that I think about this, if you imagine an archer with a bow, and she's notched the arrow, 80% in the belly, 20% in the chest, and then release, right? So a physical impact I failed to mention, it's called tetany. Because this breath work is upregulating in the central nervous system, it's vasoconstricting. So where I see this happen the most is if people are too aggressive and they push the exhale. I'm pretty type A. This happens for me a lot. The hands tend to clamp up like lobster hands. The jaw can clamp up. If that's your experience today, one, it's temporary. After we stop the technique, that will stop. That will stop. You don't have to worry about that being a long-lasting effect. The second thing is relax those exhale. It's a short exhale. And just let it fall out. Again, like the archer, if she pushes the string and the arrow forward, she's going to throw the arrow off course. So once she loads the bow, she just releases the thumb and the index finger and lets the arrow fly. So do the same thing with your exhale breath today. So open mouth breath, inhale into the belly, 80%, chest 20%, let the breath fall out. And there are no pauses. This is a conscious, connected breath. So it's circular. So belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. And it's like that over and over throughout the technique. We'll get to a point in the practice. I'll give you about 10 breaths notice that I'm going to cue for a primal scream, right? So it sounds crazy for me to tell you that we're going to be doing a primal scream, and it'll sound crazy to you in your house to do the primal scream, right? If you have other people in your house, you might choose to let them know. If you choose to do the primal scream today, it really can trigger a really powerful release. If you've got the kind of privacy where you can do that, I would really recommend that you do that. If you don't, do what you need to do. I'll get after that primal scream, the technique stops. Come back to a comfortable, natural breath. I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes to just enjoy the sense of vibration. And then I'm going to guide you through a heart opening meditation. Now, last step before I cue you to begin in the practice. I know this is a lot of talking, but especially if this is a new technique for you, it's really important to me that you know what to expect. I'm going to demonstrate just a few rounds. This is where the bolster might come in. If you come down onto your back, take your arms anywhere and be comfortable. Right? So me, hands down by my waist, palms facing the sky, it feels terrible. Right? My shoulders can't relax it. So go wider with your hands if you need to. And then when I cue you to start the technique, 80% on the belly, let the belly balloon up, 20% in the chest. Exhale, let it fall out. So it might look something like this. You might notice at the top of that inhale, my back is arching a little bit. It's super normal. Super normal. If that's your experience today, that's not a problem, friends. Although if it's a little too aggressive and the arching is too much, that might be an indication that you can expect some tetany. So you might choose to slow that down a little bit. All right, so come onto your back, find a comfortable position. And then if you feel safe, if it feels safe for you to close down your eyes, close your eyes down. If that doesn't feel safe, don't close them down. But if it feels safe, close your eyes down. You might even choose to place a sleep mask over your eyes. And let me cue you for a cleansing breath. So draw in a nice deep inhale. Exhale, release the breath through your mouth. Exhale, make a ha sound. Ha. We're going to start with some grounding. Draw in a deep inhale through your nose. Think about what is your favorite color. Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose. What's your favorite food? Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose. What's your favorite texture? Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose. What's your intention for this practice today? Do you just want to release some stress and some anxiety? That's fine. Is there something big you've been carrying that you want to let go of? Is there something? Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose. Is there something that you want to let go of, or is there something that you want to bring into your life? But hold that intention firmly in your heart. And now we're going to start the technique. So exhale through your mouth. Maybe tip your head back a little bit. Big, wide, open mouth. 80% exhale in the belly. 20% in the chest. Exhale, let it fall out through your mouth. Relaxed exhale. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. And maintain that same pattern. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Continue breathing in that same pattern. On that 20% or that 80% inhale into your belly, really let your belly fill up like a balloon. Go bigger than you think you need to go. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. No pauses. So keep this breath connected and circular the whole time. Right. The biggest question that people that are new to this practice have is, am I doing the technique correctly? It's a simple technique, friends. If you're breathing through your mouth, 80% in the belly, really ballooning the belly out, 20% in the chest, and then letting the exhale just fall out, you're doing it correctly. So just keep that pattern up. Belly, chest, release. That's it. Keep it up. Go deep, even bigger in your belly. So let your belly inflate and expand even more. Good. And if you're finding that exhale is really aggressive, soften that exhale a little bit. Just relax the breath out, let it fall out. Again, maybe visualize, if it's useful, the archer just releasing the arrow. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. So again, for a breath practice, we come into this and we expect that it's going to be physically easy. This is going to be a really physically demanding practice for you today. And it's worth it. So this practice for me, I found, is like many things in life, that the more that you put into it, the more I'm going to push you really hard the first 15 or 20 minutes. The more you lean into the technique the first 15 or 20 minutes, the better the outcome that you're going to get, the more profound and powerful the outcome is that you can expect. So keep that up. Inflate your belly. Inflate it even more, even more. And know that this is leading somewhere. Yes, I'm going to push you. Yes, it's going to be physically demanding. You're probably not tired yet. You will be. And you can do this the whole time. You can do this the whole time. Will yourself to do that. Bigger on the inhale, even more breath on your inhale. Inflate the belly all the way out. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, let the breath just relax and fall out. Keep that pattern up. That's it, friends. You've got it. That is the technique. It's a really simple technique that's really hard to do. And you got this. All right, so already you may start to experience some tingling. You may feel the tingling in your face. You may feel the tingling in the arms and the hands. For me, it usually starts in the face, the hands, and the arms. But that's expected. You knew that was coming. And you may already be experiencing the lawyers of the mind telling you that you don't want to be here. This is weird. This is not what I signed on for. I don't want to do this. You can do anything you want. You are not hypnotized. You have free will of your experience. But you knew the lawyers of your mind were going to play these tricks on you. Set that aside. Keep pressing through this technique. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Good job. Keep that technique. Go bigger in the belly, though. Bigger on the inhale. That inhale is going to be money. That's your investment that's going to get you the outcome that you want. Even bigger in the belly. Good job. You got this. That's it. Keep working that technique. Keep working that technique. You may be starting to feel early signs of physical fatigue now. That's okay. It's a demanding practice. You knew that was going to happen. You can do the work that's required for this. It's a simple technique. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Bigger with your inhale, even bigger, bigger than you think you need to go. Good. That's it, friends. You got it. That's it, friends. You're doing it. That's a technique, but keep it up. You've invested enough now. You've got skin in the game at this point. You've invested enough energy. You've invested enough time. Don't slack off now, right? Get the outcome that you wanted from this practice. That means keep pressing that inhale. 80% in the belly, 20% in the chest. Soft exhale, let it fall out over and over. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. You got this. Keep it up. Even bigger in the belly, friends. Don't slow down the tempo now. You got this. You got this. The pace can be at your pace, but let the belly inflate like a full balloon each and every time. At this point, the tingling that started in your face, your hands, and your arms, you are likely at this point feeling that same sense of tingling in your legs. And the lawyers of the mind playing tricks on you, for some of you, that is stopped at this point, right? You've already started to shift into reprieve, right? But for some of you, the lawyers of the mind are really going to start to speak loudly now. That's okay. You knew that was going to happen. Set those voices aside, set those directions aside, and all you have to think about, belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. No pauses. Go the whole time. Bigger in your belly, friends. Even more in the belly. Good. That's it. That's a technique. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Keep it up. You're doing great. Now keep pushing that technique, friends. Same thing over and over. Inflate the belly, inflate the chest, let it softly deflate. Belly, chest, release. The signs of your physical fatigue, they may be really starting to kick in now, right? That's okay. You knew this was going to be a physically demanding practice. You knew this was going to happen, and you've got this. You can continue this technique, so keep pushing it. Belly, chest, release. belly, chest, release. No pauses. Keep going. You're doing great, friends. You've worked long enough now. Don't shortcut the kind of impact that you might be able to get from this practice. Keep pressing the technique. This is not forever, right? This is a short amount of time. You got this. Even bigger in the friends, even bigger in the belly, friends, even bigger in the belly. Don't slack off now. You got this. Right. So at this point, almost certainly you're feeling a really intense tingling around your whole body. Depending on how your body and how you've approached the technique, you may start to feel that tetany, that clamping in your hands and your jaw. That's okay. You knew that was going to happen. That's not permanent. Soften your exhale a little bit and continue pressing through that technique. That tetany will go away and everything will relax after we stop the technique. Keep pushing through belly, chest, release, belly, chest, release. You're doing great. You got this. Great job breathing into the belly, friends. It looks really good. So keep that up. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. All right, keep it up, friends. Keep it up. Belly, chest, release. belly, chest, release. Go bigger in the belly again. Don't slack off. I know that you're physically tired at this point. You're doing great, and you can do this. We have a few more minutes left. Right? If you start to have deep emotions bubble up, if you can, let the emotions rise. If that leads to tears, if you start to have tears flow, if you feel safe and you can allow yourself, just let those tears come out and exit your body. Come back to the technique, and whatever happens, happens. Allow yourself, whatever your emotional response to this practice is, it's okay, friends, I promise you. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Right, go bigger in the belly, go even bigger. You're in the home stretch, but now's the time to lean into the technique. Don't lean away from it, lean into it. Inflate your belly like a balloon. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. You got this. I know you're tired. You're doing great, and you can do this. You can do this. A couple more minutes. All right, we have about another full minute of the technique. Keep up the technique for now, but listen to me as closely as you can. That's going to be difficult for you to do right now. All right, in about a minute, I'm going to cue you for a deep inhale, and then I'll cue you to take a primal scream. I will be joining you in the scream. So particularly, to come back to your intention, and particularly if your intention was to let something difficult that you've been holding on to go, when you scream, I want you to visualize whatever this thing is exiting your body, right? Exiting through your body, through your mouth with this breath. Keep up the technique for now. Belly, chest, release. Belly, chest, release. But after the primal scream, no more technique. Come back to a natural breath. You've done the work already. All right, draw on a deep, juicy inhale. Hold it at the top. Prepare for your primal scream. And then let that scream rip. Ah! Come back to a comfortable breath. A sense of full body vibration and whatever else is arising and experiencing. And I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to just sit here and enjoy this. And then I'll guide you through a heart opening meditation. I'd like you to bring your attention to your heart. And start out maybe by visualizing your literal physical heart, this precious organ that nourishes us by circulating our life's blood throughout our body. And then start to shift your attention to the metaphor of your heart. So the seat of compassion and love in us. What's the felt sense of your heart? Where are you feeling your heart right now? Note the relative size of your metaphorical emotional heart. And on this metaphorical emotional heart, I'd like you to visualize a golden door. Right now, that door is closed. Start to lift the fingers of either hand up toward the stars. Float the fingers up toward the stars. It can be real. There can be a lot of softness in your hand and your arm here. And with your fingers of either hand floating up to the stars, I'd like you to bring to your mind a memory, a moment of your life that was pure joy. Right? You only felt one way, and that one way was joyful. So what were the circumstances? What was happening for you in that moment? If there were people with you, who were the other people with you in that moment? Who were you? Who were you in that moment? And I'd like you to visualize capturing that memory, that moment of joy in your lifted hand. Start to lower that hand down towards your heart. Notice as you do so, that golden door starts to open. And the closer your hand gets to your heart, the more of that moment re-enters your heart. Now cover your heart with your hand. Cover that hand with your other hand. What's the felt sense of your heart now? What's the relative size? Float the fingers of that same hand up toward the stars. When the fingers of that hand are floating up toward the stars, I'd like you to find within your experience a memory of laughter, something that really cracked you up, like that laughter you couldn't stop laughing from. Right? Maybe it was good, clean family fun. Maybe it was inappropriate. But what were the circumstances? Who was with you at that moment of pure, joyous laughter? And who were you in that moment? And then visualize catching that moment of laughter in that lifted hand. Start to lower your hand down towards your heart. Once again, that golden door in your heart opens. And as your hand approaches your heart, that moment of laughter re-enters your heart. Cover your heart with your hand. Cover that hand with your other hand. What's the response of your heart to re-entertaining this moment, to going back to that moment? Lift the fingers of that same hand, let them float up toward the stars. Lots of softness, both in the fingers, the hand, the arm. I'd like you to find within your experience a moment of kindness that you gave. Something kind that you did for someone with no agenda. Maybe you didn't even know the person for whom you did the kind act. Maybe they didn't even know who did this act for them. What were the circumstances? Who was that person or who were those people? And who are you in that moment? And then find that moment of kindness. Feel it catch in your hand. Start lowering your hand down towards your heart. The golden door opens. And that moment of kindness offered re-enters your heart. Cover your heart with your hand. Cover that hand with your other hand. It's the felt sense of your heart. Float the fingers of that hand up toward the stars one last time. And I'd like you to find the memory of a moment of pure kindness received. So you were the receiver this time. Right? Maybe you know the person who did this act of kindness for you, something that you could not have done for yourself. Maybe you don't know. Maybe this person was a total stranger. Who was that person, if you know? What were the circumstances? Who were you in that moment? And then gather that moment of kindness received in your lifted hand. Start to float it down towards your heart. Notice that golden door reopening. In that moment of kindness received re-enters your heart. Cover your heart with your hand. Cover that hand with your other hand. And just rest here. Life gets really hard. We get really busy. And we get really challenged. And it's easy for us to lose these moments of joy, to lose these moments of laughter, to lose track of these moments of kindness that we both offered and received. But those experiences are always within us. Those are your experiences, and you can bring them back into your heart anytime you need. I'm going to close out the practice here, friends, but you're in the safety of your home. You're doing this at your own convenience. Feel for the sense of full body vibration that you're experiencing. And you can stay in this resting position for as long as you like. I'm Chris. I'm with Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. And thank you for joining me for our igniting breathwork practice today. Blessings to you and your family.
All right, so I wanted to take just a couple minutes and tell you about this program that we have through Transformation Nation. It's called Next Level Human. And it's a 12-month program, and it's based on the habits of the ancient yogis. The habits themselves are not that complicated. There's sort of a superficial level that we can automate them that we could call successful, but each of them is deep and juicy too. So for if one habit is really impactful for someone, they can dig really deep into that. What we do is we have weekly group coaching calls. We share the best available science on habit evolution. We talk about one of those every meeting. Each member gets a one-on-one monthly coaching call with me. Unlimited access to Transformation Nation Yoga. That's 11 classes a week, yoga, meditation, and breath work. And in the interest of bringing their posse along, every member gets 2 guest passes per week for that as well. Monthly workshops. So every other month we alternate. I'll do a yoga workshop one month and then a wellness workshop the second month. So for example, in October, I did a rock the block workshop, talking about how to use a yoga block to elevate one's practice. This month we did a green smoothie workshop, so more of a wellness related. Members get a guest pass for those as well. We do monthly social events. Members get guest passes to those as well. And we have access to Kate Stillman's online Body Thrive curricula, which is awesome. She's an American, but like I'm continually blown away by how big she thinks and talks about both Ayurveda and yoga. And the last thing that I feel like we offer as part of this, like how can we know the right things to do to take care of ourselves and not do them, like consistently not do them? It's really hard when we're on our own. And we're often not coached on how to evolve our habits. So we share the best available science on human habit evolution, and we're members of a dynamic group. We have right now a small but growing and mighty community. When we have a win, one of our members have a win, we all celebrate that win together. If one of us falls, we can rally around, help pick each other up, dust each other off, get each other back on our feet. The sort of outcomes that people in this program, in programs like this, because our pilot program we're only 7 weeks in, reduce chronic systemic inflammation. I've shared with you my interest in chronic systemic inflammation. Improved quality and quantity of sleep. Rhythmic eating. So like in more contemporarily, we would call this intermittent fasting, but working toward a rhythmic eating regimen. Optimal body composition, the ability to live and move powerfully, improve quality of relationships. So many people have compression in their lives. They have too much in their schedule. They have too much going on in their lives. This program helps us to find more easeful living and reduce the compression in their lives. And really, the whole point is to get in rhythm with nature, with our circadian rhythms, and to thrive rather than survive. We're currently enrolling right now for our January 2022 cohort, and I did want to just mention, I just made the decision today and posted, but we're doing a gratitude sale the day after Thanksgiving, where people that enroll that schedule a strategy session that day and enroll that day, we'll enroll them at the pilot program rate, which is a savings of about 20%. Friends, that concludes our Breathe for Life free gratitude workshop. Just as a review, I talked about the autonomic nervous system, kind of a framework and model for befriending and managing your own nervous system. In the Breathe for Life segment of the practices, I led you through a coffee category practice, a water category practice, in a whiskey category practice. Three different breath tools from three different breath tool categories that you can use for very different circumstances in your life and during your day. And then we closed with a single breath practice that I think has the power to be really transformative if used skillfully in people's lives. So I hope you enjoyed this free gratitude Breathe for Life workshop, and I hope to see you on your mat soon.